Morning in the Alpha King's territory didn't begin with sunlight. It began with silence, kind that pressed into your chest and reminded you exactly where you stood. Or rather, how low. Rowan kept her head down as she moved through the lower corridors of the palace, her steps quiet, measured, almost practiced. A woven basket rested against her hip, filled with dried herbs, crushed leaves, and carefully wrapped tonics. Nothing remarkable. Just like her. That was the point. No one noticed Rowan. Not the guards stationed at every archway, not the servants rushing past with lowered eyes, not even the council members who spoke in hushed tones about war, territory, and punishment. She preferred it that way. Because in this place, being seen meant being chosen. And being chosen rarely ended well. Head down, Mistress Silvera had told her on her first day in the palace infirmary. Speak when spoken to, to move when ordered. And never, she had paused, her voice lowering, never draw the Alpha's attention. Rowan had listened. She always listened. That's how she survived. An Omega in a territory ruled by the most feared Alpha King in generations had no room for mistakes. No space for curiosity. No right to stand out. So she made herself small. Invisible, safe. Or at least she thought she was. The palace itself was built to remind everyone of power. High stone walls. Narrow windows. Long corridors that echoed even the softest misstep. Every detail felt deliberate, designed to make you feel watched. Controlled. Owned. 'Cause here everything belonged to him. King Leander Martell. The Alpha King, his name wasn't spoken loudly. Didn't need to be. Carried weight all on its own. Stories of him traveled faster than messengers ever could. They said he ended the mountain war in a single night. That he broke alliances with a look alone. Slowly. Deliberately. Rowan had never seen it herself. But she had seen the aftermath. And that was more than enough. He ruled without question. Without mercy. That traitors didn't just disappear, they were made examples of. Publicly, slowly. Deliberately. Rowan had never seen it herself. But she had seen the aftermath. And that was more than enough. He ruled without question. Without mercy. And without attachment. Especially when it came to mates. Because in this territory, mates weren't just sacred. They were controlled. Chosen. Bound. Guarded. Not by fate, but by the Alpha King himself. It was another reason Rowan stayed invisible. An Omega who drew attention could be claimed. And being claimed didn't always mean protection. Sometimes it meant possession. Rowan tightened her grip on the basket as she stepped into the infirmary, the familiar scent of crushed herbs wrapping around her like a shield. This was her place. Quiet. Predictable. Safe. She spent her days grinding roots into paste, boiling leaves into tonics, and treating minor injuries from soldiers who rarely looked her in the eye. It was routine. And routine meant survival. "Rowan," Mistress Silvera called from across the room without looking up. "Take this poultice to Counselor Brannan. He's refused to come down again." Of course he had. Rowan nodded silently, already moving before the sentence finished. She took the prepared mixture, careful not to spill a drop, and adjusted her shawl over her shoulders. Simple task. In and out. No mistakes. No attention. That was the plan. Corridors outside were busier now. Servants moved quickly. Guards shifted positions. Voices echoed faintly from deeper within the palace. Rowan followed the familiar route toward the council chamber, her heartbeat steady, her focus narrow. Don't think. Don't look, just deliver and leave. The large doors to the chamber were already open. That was unusual. She slowed slightly as she approached, just enough to notice the tension in the air. Conversations inside were quieter than expected. Controlled. Measured. Important. She shouldn't have gone in. Not during a session. But orders were orders. Rowan stepped inside, and immediately wished she hadn't. The room was filled. Council members seated in a wide semicircle. Guards stationed along the walls. Servants standing still as statues. And at the head of it all, him, King Leander Martell. Rowan's gaze dropped instantly to the floor, her pulse spiking despite herself. She felt it before she understood it. That pressure. Heavy. Unrelenting. Like the air itself bent around him. She moved forward carefully, each step precise, rehearsed. Poultice trembled slightly in her hands, but she tightened her grip, forcing it still. Just deliver it. Don't look up. Don't. Stop. The word wasn't loud. But it didn't need to be. Cut through the room like a blade. Rowan froze. Her breath caught. For a moment she thought, hoped, it wasn't meant for her. Then, come closer. Her stomach dropped. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her head. And for the first time, she saw him. Close. Closer than anyone like her ever should be. He was larger than she expected. Broader. Still. Controlled in a way that felt unnatural. His posture alone carried authority, effortless, absolute. But it was his eyes that held her. Dark. Unreadable. And locked onto her like she was the only thing in the room. Rowan's thoughts scattered. She stepped forward because she had to. Because not stepping forward wasn't an option. Every instinct in her body screamed to retreat. But she didn't. Couldn't. She stopped a few steps away, lowering her gaze again, her voice barely above a whisper. My king, the poultice. Silence followed. Too long. Too heavy. She felt his attention shift over her, not hurried, not careless, but deliberate. As if he were studying something. Noticing something. Something no one else ever had. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. Her pulse echoed in her ears. Why her? Why now? The room didn't move. Didn't breathe. Even the council seemed to wait. And then, he stood. The movement was slow. Controlled. But it changed everything. The air shifted. Rowan's breath faltered as he stepped closer. Once. Twice. Stopping just in front of her. Too close. Far too close. She could feel the heat of him now. Feel the weight of his presence pressing into her space, her thoughts, her control. Her instincts reacted before her mind did. Run. The thought came sharp. Immediate. But she didn't move. She couldn't. 'Cause this was the Alpha King. And no one ran from him. No one. His hand lifted slightly, not touching, not yet, but close enough that her breath caught again. Like he was about to confirm something. Or claim something. Or. He paused. Just for a second. A single, unreadable second. And then his gaze shifted, just slightly. But not away. Not completely. Not like before. Not like she didn't matter. Rowan swallowed hard, her chest tight. 'Cause that look, it wasn't casual. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't forgettable. It was something else. Something far more dangerous. Something that settled deep in her bones and refused to leave. Because the Alpha King wasn't just looking at her. He was seeing her. And worse. He looked at her like he already knew something she didn't. The chamber didn't return to normal after that. It couldn't. Not after the Alpha King had looked at her like that. Rowan finished delivering the poultice, though she couldn't remember how her hands stopped shaking long enough to do it. She bowed. Stepped back. Kept her gaze down. And left. But the feeling didn't leave with her. Followed. Down the corridor, through the winding halls, all the way back to the infirmary. Like something unseen had marked her. The first summons came before dusk. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just a guard at the infirmary door, his presence enough to silence the room. "Rowan," he said, his tone neutral. "You're requested." Quested, not ordered. But in this palace there was no difference. Mistress Silvera's hands stilled mid-motion. Her eyes flicked up, sharp, assessing. Then to Rowan. A pause. Too long to be casual. "Go," she said finally, her voice controlled. "And speak only when spoken to." Rowan nodded. Of course. She always did. But something in her chest tightened as she set down her tools. 'Cause she already knew who had sent for her. And she didn't know why. The walk felt longer this time. Heavier. Every step echoed louder than before. Servants she passed didn't just ignore her now. They looked. Quick glances. Subtle. Curious. Then quickly away. Like they'd noticed something they weren't supposed to. Rowan's grip tightened at her sides. Don't think about it. Don't draw attention. Just go. The guard stopped at a set of doors she hadn't approached before. Private quarters. The realization settled cold in her stomach. He opened the door. Inside, Rowan hesitated. Just for a second. Then stepped through. The room was quieter than she expected. Dimly lit. Controlled. Till. And he was already there. Seated. Waiting. That was the first thing that felt wrong. The Alpha King didn't wait. Everything came to him. Always. Rowan lowered her gaze immediately, her pulse rising again. "My king." Silence. Then, "Look at me." Her breath caught. Slowly, she lifted her head. And there it was again. That gaze. Steady. Focused. Unmoving. Not passing over her. Not dismissing her. Locked. Like he was studying her. Like he was searching for something only he could see. "Come closer." The words were calm. Too calm. Rowan obeyed. One step. Then another. Each one heavier than the last. She stopped a few feet away. Not close enough to touch. But close enough to feel it. That pressure. That presence. That pull. He leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable. "Your name." "Rowan," she answered softly. "I know." A pause. Too long. Too deliberate. "Then why ask?" she almost said. But didn't. 'Cause that would be a mistake. Instead, she stayed quiet. Till. Obedient. The way she was supposed to be. His eyes didn't leave her. Not once. "Where were you born?" Question came without warning. Rowan blinked. "North Ridge, my king." "How long have you been here?" 3 years. Another pause. Then, "Why did no one report you?" Her chest tightened. "Report her?" I don't understand." His gaze sharpened. "You don't stand like an Omega raised in the lower ranks." The words landed heavier than they should have. Rowan's breath faltered. "I've done nothing wrong." "I didn't say you had." His voice didn't rise. But it didn't need to. Stopped her instantly. Silence stretched again. Thick. Uncomfortable. Dangerous. 'Cause this wasn't questioning. This was probing. And he wasn't looking for answers. He was looking for something else. Something deeper. Something she didn't even understand herself. It didn't stop there. The summons became frequent. Unpredictable. Sometimes morning. Sometimes late into the night. Always the same. "Come." And she went. 'Cause she had no choice. First it was just questions. Simple ones. Where she worked, who trained her, what she knew. But they changed. Slowly. Subtly. Until they weren't simple anymore. What do you feel when you walk past the eastern wall? Rowan hesitated. Nothing, my king. His eyes narrowed. Think again. She swallowed. Unease. Why? I don't know. A pause. Then. You will. Another day. Another question. Do you dream? Rowan blinked, caught off guard. Yes. What do you see? She hesitated. Too long. His gaze darkened slightly. Answer. Forests. Only forests? No. What else? Rowan's throat tightened. I don't remember. But that wasn't entirely true. And somehow, he knew it. It wasn't just the questions. It was the way he watched her. Always watching. Even when he wasn't speaking. Even when she wasn't answering. Like every movement mattered. Every breath. Every hesitation. It didn't match the stories. This wasn't the Alpha King who ignored what didn't matter. This wasn't the ruler who dismissed the weak. This was something else. Something focused. Something intentional. And it made no sense. Others started to notice. They couldn't not. You didn't get summoned repeatedly by the Alpha King without people talking. Whispers followed her now. Soft. Careful. Dangerous. She's been called again. Why her? She's nothing. Exactly. Glances lingered longer. Servants stepped aside quicker. Not out of respect. Out of uncertainty. And something else. Jealousy. Suspicion. Fear. Rowan felt it all. Every time she walked through the halls. Every time the doors opened for her. Every time his name was attached to hers. It was changing things. And she didn't know how to stop it. One evening, as she turned a corner near the council wing, two voices cut through the quiet. It's not normal. Nothing about this is normal. She's an Omega. Exactly. Rowan slowed. Just slightly. Not enough to be obvious. But enough to hear. You think he's... Don't say it. A pause. Then... If he is, she won't survive it. Rowan's stomach dropped. She kept walking. Didn't turn. Didn't react. But the words stayed. Echoing. Repeating. Over and over. She won't survive it. The next summons came that same night. Later than usual. Corridors were empty this time. Silent. Too silent. Rowan stepped into his chambers again, her pulse already racing. He wasn't seated this time. He was standing. Near the window. Back turned. Till. Waiting. The door closed behind her. A soft click. Louder than it should have been. My king, she said quietly. He didn't turn immediately. Seconds passed. Then, come here. Closer this time. Too close. Rowan hesitated. Just for a second. Then stepped forward. Again. And again. Until she stood within arm's reach. Her breath slowed. Her thoughts scattered. 'Cause the air felt different. Heavier. Charged. Like something was about to break. He turned. Slowly. Deliberately. And for the first time, there was something in his expression. Not cold. Not distant. Not controlled. Something sharper. Something restrained. His gaze dropped. And not to her face. Lower. To her wrist. Her pulse spiked. She hadn't noticed it before. The faint mark. Barely visible. But there. His hand lifted. Slow. Measured. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough that her breath caught. The space between them tightened. Her instincts screamed again. Run. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. 'Cause this wasn't just fear anymore. This was something else. Something pulling her in the opposite direction. Something she didn't understand. Something dangerous. His fingers brushed her skin. Light. Barely there. But it felt like everything stopped. Her breath. Her thoughts. Time itself. And his reaction wasn't what it should have been. He didn't pull away. Didn't dismiss it. Didn't ignore her like he should have. His jaw tightened. His gaze darkened. And for a brief moment, he looked affected. Truly affected. Like her touch had done something. Something real. Something he couldn't control. Rowan's heart pounded. 'Cause that didn't make sense. None of this made sense. The Alpha King didn't react. Didn't hesitate. Didn't lose control. But right now, he was. Just slightly. Just enough. And that was worse than anything else. 'Cause it meant this wasn't random. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't coincidence. It was something deliberate. Something building. Something waiting. His hand dropped slowly. But his gaze didn't. Not for a second. Not even when she stepped back. Not even when she tried to breathe again. Because the Alpha King wasn't just watching her anymore. He was waiting. The summons didn't come this time. No guard. No message. No formal request carved in protocol or delivered through silence. Just absence. And that was what unsettled Rowan the most. Because in the Alpha King's territory, nothing happened without intention. And silence was never neutral. She should have stayed in the infirmary. That thought came late. Too late. By the time she realized the corridors had gone empty, truly empty, unnaturally empty, she was already halfway through the eastern passage. Her footsteps slowed. Then stopped. Something was wrong. Not obvious. Not loud. But present. Like the air itself had shifted around her. "Hello," she called softly. Her voice didn't echo back the way it should have. Just disappeared. Swallowed. Rowan tightened her grip on the cloth bundle she carried. Her pulse started to rise, slow at first, then sharper. This wasn't normal. Not even here. A low instinct at the base of her spine told her to turn back. Immediately. But when she turned, he was there. The Alpha King didn't emerge. He simply existed. One moment the corridor was empty. The next he stood at its end, blocking it. Till. Waiting. Rowan froze. Her breath caught so hard it hurt. There were no guards. No council members. No witnesses. Just him. And her. "Leave," she said instinctively. The word came out weaker than she intended. He didn't move. Didn't respond. Didn't even blink. Instead, he took a step forward. Slow. Controlled. Too controlled. Rowan's body reacted before her mind did, backing up instinctively. One step. Then another. Until her spine met the cold stone wall behind her. Trapped. Her heartbeat spiked. "No," she whispered, barely audible. His gaze dropped to her mouth for a fraction of a second. Then back to her eyes. And something in his expression shifted. Not anger. Not authority. Something tighter. Contained. Like restraint holding something back with difficulty. "You've been avoiding the West Corridor," he said. It wasn't a question. Rowan swallowed. "I haven't been avoiding anything, my king." A pause. Too long. Too heavy. Then, "You lie badly." Her breath caught. "I'm not lying." Another step. Closer. The air between them tightened instantly, as if reacting to his presence alone. Rowan pressed back harder into the wall, though there was nowhere left to go. This was wrong. He was too close. Far too close. The Alpha King didn't corner people. He didn't need to. People came to him. Or they disappeared. But this was deliberate pursuit. And it made her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. "Look at me," he said quietly. She hesitated, then obeyed, slowly lifting her gaze, and immediately regretting it, 'cause his eyes were different now. Not calm, not detached, not controlled. There was something fractured beneath them, something unstable. Rowan felt it before she understood it. Danger. Not the kind she was used to. Not political. Not physical. Something deeper. Something instinctive. "Why do you smell like that?" he asked suddenly. Rowan blinked. "What?" His jaw tightened slightly. A subtle movement. But it meant something. For him. "I asked a question," he said. His voice was lower now. Less controlled. Rowan's throat tightened. "I don't know what you mean." He stepped closer again. Too close now. Close enough that her breathing changed without permission. Close enough that her body betrayed her instinct to retreat. And then he stopped. Completely. Like something inside him had locked. His gaze flickered for the first time. Not away from her, but inward. Like he was fighting something. "Impossible," he muttered. Rowan frowned slightly despite her fear. "My king." But he didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, his hand lifted again. Not touching. Hovering. Just near her collarbone. Rowan stiffened instantly. Every muscle in her body screaming at her to move. But she couldn't. 'Cause something about him had changed. The air around him felt heavier. Thicker. Like pressure building before collapse. And then he exhaled sharply. A sound that didn't feel like control. Felt like restraint breaking. Rowan's breath hitched. "What are you?" His fingers stopped just above her skin. And something inside him snapped. Not violently. Not outwardly. But internally. His eyes darkened completely. And for a split second, something primal surfaced. Not Alpha King. Not ruler. Something older. Something dangerous. Rowan felt it like a shock through her chest. A pull. An instinctive reaction her body didn't understand. Her knees almost gave slightly. "What did you do to me?" he asked quietly. Question wasn't accusation. It was confusion. Raw. Unfiltered. Rowan shook her head quickly. "I didn't do anything." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure. Because something about him was reacting to her. And that shouldn't be possible. Not for him. Not for the Alpha King. He lowered his hands slowly. But his gaze didn't leave her. Not even for a second. Like stepping away from her would mean losing something. Or worse, admitting something. "You shouldn't be here," Rowan whispered. The words came out before she could stop them. A mistake. Immediately she felt it. His eyes sharpened again. "You think I brought you here by accident?" Her breath caught. That wasn't an answer. That was a shift. A deeper one. Something underneath everything. Rowan shook her head slightly. "I don't know what's happening." Neither did he. That was the terrifying part. Silence stretched between them. But it wasn't empty. It was charged. Alive. Then he spoke again. Lower this time. Almost to himself. "This shouldn't exist." Rowan frowned slightly. What shouldn't? His gaze flickered just once to her wrist. The same place he had touched before. And something in his expression hardened. Not with anger. with realization, and then hesitation. Real hesitation. For the Alpha King, Rowan's pulse stuttered, because kings didn't hesitate. Ever. "What are you hiding from me?" she asked quietly. Questions slipped out before she could stop it. His gaze snapped back to hers instantly. And for a moment, he didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe the way he normally did. Just watched her. Like the answer wasn't simple. Like it cost something to say. Then, "You don't know what you are," he said finally. Rowan's chest tightened. "I'm an Omega." A pause. Too sharp. Too immediate. "No," he said. Just that. One word. And it shattered something quiet inside her. Rowan shook her head slightly. "That's not possible." But even as she said it, something in her stomach twisted. 'Cause deep down, she didn't sound convinced. The Alpha King stepped back slightly, just enough to release some of the pressure in the air. But his gaze never left, never softened, never broke. "If you were only that," he said quietly, "you wouldn't be standing here." Rowan's breath trembled, and for the first time since this began, she felt it. Not fear, not confusion, something worse. Recognition. Something inside her reacting to words she didn't understand. Something she didn't choose. Something that felt like it had been waiting. A long time. The silence between them stretched again. But this time, it wasn't calm. It was fragile. Like the moment before something breaks completely. Rowan swallowed hard. "I want to leave," she whispered. He didn't stop her. Didn't block her. Didn't speak. But his eyes followed her every movement. Like letting her go was not the same as losing her. And that was worse. Because as Rowan took one slow step backward, then another, retreating into the corridor that had brought her here, she felt it again. That pressure. That pull. Not behind her, but inside her. And she realized with cold clarity she didn't want to accept. And that's when she realized staying was more dangerous than running. Corridors didn't feel the same after that night. Rowan noticed it immediately. Or maybe it was more accurate to say she felt it. Like the air itself had changed its relationship with her. He hadn't stopped her. That was the part that haunted her most. The Alpha King. The man who controlled entire territories with a word. Who ended rebellion before it began. Who never, ever let anything he wanted slip away. And yet, he had let her go. Just like that. No command and no pursuit and no punishment. Only silence. And silence in his world was never mercy. It was calculation. Rowan didn't return to her quarters. She couldn't. Every wall felt closer now. Every corridor heavier. Every shadow too aware. So she moved. Without plan. Without permission. Without thinking. Just movement. Instinct overriding reason. Out of the palace first. Through the lower gates. Past the guards who didn't stop her, because something in her expression must have told them not to. And then, she ran. The forest outside the palace was nothing like safety. It never had been. It was territory. And territory belonged to him. But Rowan didn't stop. Branches tore at her arms as she pushed deeper between the trees. Her breath came sharp and uneven, but she didn't slow down. Couldn't, because staying still meant thinking. And thinking meant remembering. His voice, his gaze, the way he had looked at her like she wasn't just a servant, not just an Omega, like she was something he had been waiting to find, something already known. The moment it hit her, she almost stumbled. The thought came uninvited, violent in its clarity. He wasn't confused. He was confirming. Rowan stopped abruptly, one hand pressing against a tree trunk as her chest rose and fell too quickly. "No," she whispered to herself. "That's not possible." But her body didn't agree. Her body remembered things her mind couldn't explain. Pressure in the room. The way he had hesitated. The way his control had fractured. Not because she was nothing, but because she was something. Something he had recognized. Something that should not exist. Back in the palace, the silence didn't last long. It never did. Because silence in a kingdom like his always meant movement was happening somewhere else. Behind closed doors. Behind locked gates. In places no one was allowed to see. The Alpha King stood alone in his chambers. Still. Perfectly still. But not calm. Not anymore. His hand hovered over the table where Rowan had stood just hours before. Where her scent still lingered faintly in the air. Faint. But undeniable. His jaw tightened. Once. Then again. Like something inside him was resisting recognition. And losing. "She's gone," a voice said carefully from the doorway. Beta Corvin. Careful. Measured. Controlled. But even he didn't step inside fully. Not tonight. The Alpha King didn't turn. "Where?" he asked. Only one word. But it didn't sound like a question. Sounded like inevitability. Corvin hesitated. She left the palace grounds an hour ago. No escort. No clearance. A pause. Then quieter. She ran. The word landed differently than expected. For a moment. Nothing. No reaction. No movement. No shift in posture. Then, the Alpha King exhaled. Slow. Controlled. But something in that breath broke the atmosphere. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But permanently. 'Cause the next moment he spoke again. And his voice was lower. Different. Not ruler. Not king. Something sharper. Something personal. "Lock the gates," he said. Corvin blinked. "My king, she's already—" "I didn't ask where she is," he interrupted quietly. A pause. Too heavy. Too intentional. "I said lock the gates." Corvin didn't argue again. He left. And the silence returned. But it wasn't empty anymore. It was occupied. By something that had just changed shape. Rowan didn't know how long she ran. Time stopped mattering after the second hill. After the third branch snapped too close to her shoulder. After the forest stopped feeling like escape and started feeling like memory. But eventually, she stopped. Not because she wanted to, because something forced her to. Presence. Not behind her. Not ahead. Everywhere. She turned slowly. Nothing. Only trees. Only wind. Only silence. But her body reacted anyway. 'Cause she felt it again. That pressure. That awareness. Like the world itself had begun paying attention to her movements. And then, a voice. Not loud. Not distant. Close enough that her breath caught instantly. "You can't outrun what you are." Rowan froze. Her blood turned cold. 'Cause she recognized it. Not the voice. The certainty behind it. Slowly, she turned fully. And the forest seemed to shift with her. He wasn't visible. Not yet. But she knew. He was there. Somewhere between the trees. Watching. Waiting. Not rushing. Not chasing. Just certain. Her heartbeat rose sharply. "What do you want from me?" she called out, her voice shaking despite her attempt to control it. Silence answered first. Then, not from one direction. From everywhere at once. That depends, the voice said quietly, on what you are. Rowan swallowed hard. Her fingers tightened at her sides. I don't know what you mean. A pause. Longer this time. Heavier. Then. You will. And something in the way he said it made her stomach drop. Because it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like recognition. Back in the palace, rumors had already begun to spread. Not whispered this time. Not careful. Open. I heard he ordered the gates sealed. For an Omega? No Omega triggers lockdown protocols. Unless she isn't just an Omega. Silence followed that statement. Heavy silence. Uncomfortable silence. 'Cause everyone understood what that implied. Something no one wanted to say out loud. Something dangerous. Something impossible. Something that should not exist inside the Alpha King's territory. But did. Rowan backed away slowly in the forest. One step. Then another. But every direction felt wrong. Every movement felt watched. And then, she felt it again. Not sound. Not sight. Something deeper. Recognition. Her body reacted before her mind could process it. A sharp pulse under her skin. Heat rising through her chest. Not pain. Not fear. Something else. Something responding. Far away. In the palace. The Alpha King closed his eyes for the first time since she left. And when he opened them again, they were no longer calm. No longer distant. No longer controlled. They were focused. Hunting. An absolute certainty settled into him like a vow. Because she hadn't escaped anything. Not really. She had only confirmed what he already knew. And now there was no turning back. Not for her. Not for him. Because he wasn't hunting her to punish her. He was hunting her to claim her. The forest was no longer a place. It had become a pattern. Rowan noticed it after the third time she changed direction and still felt the same pressure behind her. Not sound. Not movement. Something worse. Awareness. Like the world itself was remembering where she was and telling him. She ran until her lungs burned. Until her legs trembled. Until her thoughts stopped forming full sentences. But it didn't matter. Because every time she stopped to listen, he was still there. Not closer. Not farther. Just inevitable. The first encounter came without warning. Clearing. Too open. Too exposed. Rowan stepped into it and instantly felt the shift in the air. Wrong. Her body reacted before her mind did. She turned. And saw nothing. Only trees. Only wind. But her instincts screamed. Move. Now. She did. And the moment she stepped back, something moved where she had just been. Fast. Controlled. Precise. A branch snapped cleanly in half. Not broken. Cut. Rowan didn't wait. She ran. Again. Harder this time. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. He wasn't chasing her. He was positioning her. The second time she almost didn't escape. A narrow ridge. Tone underfoot. Wind sharp against her face. She slowed for half a second. That was enough. Presence behind her. Not loud. Not sudden. Just there. Rowan turned sharply. And saw him. For the first time since she fled. Not fully. But enough. The Alpha King stood at the edge of the ridge below her. Perfectly still. Looking up. No anger on his face. No urgency. Just certainty. And something worse beneath it. Control slipping. Rowan stumbled back instinctively. Her foot hit loose stone. Gave way. She fell, only to feel something move beneath her instantly. Not hands, not force. Wind, controlled wind, pushed her sideways just enough to land hard against the slope instead of the drop. She gasped. Pain flared through her ribs, but she was alive. And when she looked up again, he was gone, like he had never been there at all. But the message remained. He could have taken her, at any moment, and chose not to. By the third time, she stopped believing in escape. 'Cause escape implied distance. And there was no distance anymore. Only proximity she couldn't see. Only presence she couldn't measure. Only him. Always him. Back in the palace, the Alpha King stood in silence that no longer belonged to him. Not fully. Not anymore. His hand pressed against the stone wall beside him. Hard. Too hard. The crack beneath his palm wasn't accidental. It was restraint failing. Corvin stood at the edge of the chamber again. Hesitant. Careful. My king, the scouts report she's still moving east. No response. Only silence. Then, I know, he said quietly. Corvin hesitated. She's faster than expected. She's evading the patrols. I know. Another pause. Heavier this time. Corvin swallowed. You've been tracking her personally. That was not a question. The Alpha King finally turned. Slowly. And Corvin stopped speaking immediately. Because the look in his eyes was no longer controlled. It wasn't rage. It wasn't authority. It was something deeper. Fractured. Focused. Excessive. She shouldn't be able to run this long, he said quietly. Corvin said nothing. 'Cause there was no safe response to that. The Alpha King stepped forward. One more day, he said. Then stopped. His jaw tightened slightly, like something inside him resisted the words. And lost. And she stops running. The next encounter broke something in her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet. Almost gentle. Rowan had stopped to drink from a stream. Just for a moment. Just to breathe. Her reflection in the water looked wrong now. Tired. Haunted. Changed. And then, the water rippled. But not from her. From behind her. She froze. Didn't turn immediately. 'Cause she already knew. Slowly, she stood. Turned. And there he was. Closer this time. No longer hidden. No longer distant. Just present. The Alpha King stood at the edge of the stream. Watching her. Like he had always been watching. Rowan's throat tightened. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Stop, she said quietly. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. He didn't move. Didn't respond. Just looked at her. And for the first time, something cracked in his expression. Not anger. Not control. Something closer to exhaustion. Or restraint finally breaking under weight it was never meant to carry. Why did you run? He asked. Question was not loud. But it hit her harder than anything else. Rowan swallowed. 'Cause there were 1,000 answers. Fear. Instinct. Survival. But none of them felt complete. Not anymore. I didn't have a choice, she said finally. A pause. The forest itself felt like it was holding its breath. The Alpha King stepped closer. One step. Then another. Not rushing. Not chasing. Approaching like inevitability. You always have a choice, he said quietly. Rowan shook her head slightly. No, she whispered. Not here. That stopped him. Not physically. But something in him paused. Like the words had struck something buried. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, fragile, dangerous. Then, his voice lowered. And for the first time since this began, it wasn't command. It was something closer to confession. You feel it too, he said. Rowan froze. Her pulse spiked. I don't know what you're talking about. But she did. And he knew she did. That was the worst part. Because her body had started reacting before her mind agreed. The pull. The pressure. The impossible awareness that tightened every time he came near. It wasn't fear anymore. Not entirely. And that terrified her more than anything. The Alpha King stopped just a few steps away. Close enough now that the air between them felt charged. Alive. I stopped sleeping, he said quietly. Rowan blinked. What? A pause. Long. Heavy. I stopped sleeping, he repeated. His gaze darkened slightly. And it's your fault. The words landed wrong. Not accusation. Truth. Raw and unfiltered. Rowan stepped back instinctively. That's impossible. But even as she said it, something inside her shifted. 'Cause she remembered the feeling. That pulse beneath her skin. That awareness in the forest. That reaction she couldn't explain. The Alpha King took another step forward. And this time, she didn't retreat fast enough. The space between them collapsed. Not violently. Not forcefully. Just closed. And for a second, everything stopped. Breathing. Thinking. Running. The world narrowed down to him. To her. To whatever this was becoming. His voice dropped again. Lower. Heavier. Almost broken beneath restraint. Tell me what you are, he said. Rowan's lips parted. No answer came. Because she didn't know anymore. And in that silence, something inside the Alpha King finally snapped. Not outwardly. Not violently. But completely. His hand lifted slightly, topped just short of her skin. And for the first time, he hesitated. The Alpha King hesitated. Rowan's breath caught. Because that wasn't supposed to happen. Not with him. Not ever. And as she stood there, trapped between fear and something far more dangerous, she realized something she couldn't undo. He wasn't just hunting her anymore. And neither of them were in control of what came next. The forest did not feel like an escape anymore. Felt like a loop. Rowan realized it the moment she started running again, and the air reacted before her feet even found rhythm. Not wind. Not sound. Presence. Every instinct in her body screamed the same truth at once. He was still there. Not behind her. Not ahead. Around her. She ran anyway. Because stopping was not an option she was willing to consider. Branches tore at her sleeves as she pushed through the dense forest line, her breathing uneven, sharp, breaking into fragments that barely counted as air. Her legs burned, her chest tightened, but she forced herself forward. Again. 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 But something was wrong. The forest wasn't resisting her anymore. It was guiding her. She felt it before she saw it. A narrowing in the terrain. A natural corridor between trees that led her exactly where she did not want to go. Her steps slowed. No, she whispered under her breath. A trap. Not physical. Intentional. Designed in silence. She turned sharply. And the world didn't let her leave. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing. Till. Waiting. The Alpha King was not rushing. He was not chasing. He was simply there. As if time itself had delivered her to him. Rowan stumbled back instinctively, her breath catching. How? She whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Didn't move. didn't blink. Just watched her like distance no longer mattered. Like it never had. "You keep running," he said finally, voice calm. Too calm. "And yet you always arrive where I am." Rowan shook her head. "That's not true." A pause. Then, "It is," he said, and something in his certainty made her chest tighten. Not fear alone now. Something else. Something unstable. Something shifting. She should have turned back. She should have forced another route. But her body hesitated. Just long enough. That was all he needed. He stepped forward. Slow. Measured. Not predatory. Not frantic. Inevitable. Rowan backed up once. Then again. Until her heel hit uneven ground. She almost fell but didn't. Not because she caught herself. 'Cause something beneath her stabilized the earth. She froze. Confusion flickered across her face. "What did you do?" she asked. His eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't touch the ground." That answer didn't help. It made everything worse. A shift moved through the air between them. Subtle. Invisible. But undeniable. Rowan felt it under her skin first. A pulse. Faint. Then stronger. Like something inside her was responding to proximity. To him. She pressed a hand to her chest instinctively. "What is happening to me?" she asked again. This time her voice wasn't steady. It was fractured. The Alpha King stopped walking. Not because he was told to. 'Cause something in him reacted to her question. A hesitation. Real. Visible. Dangerous. "You feel it now," he said quietly. Rowan shook her head immediately. No. But it came out weaker than before. Because her body betrayed her again. A strange warmth spreading beneath her skin. A pull. Not toward escape. Toward him. The Alpha King exhaled slowly. Like restraint was becoming expensive. Too expensive. "You were never just an Omega," he said. Rowan's stomach tightened. "I am." "No," he repeated. This time sharper. Not louder. Certain. That certainty broke something in the air. The forest went still. Even the wind stopped interfering. Rowan took a shaky step back. "Then what am I?" she whispered. Silence answered first. Too long. Too deliberate. Then, his gaze darkened. And when he spoke again, it didn't sound like explanation anymore. Sounded like truth he had been trying not to say. "You are the reason I stopped sleeping." Rowan froze completely. The words hit deeper than she expected. Not because of fear, but because something inside her reacted to them. Like recognition. Like memory she'd known. A sound echoed faintly in the distance. Not loud. Not immediate. But enough to remind them the world still existed outside this moment. The Alpha King didn't look away. Not once. "You're drawing me to you," Rowan whispered. It wasn't accusation. It was realization. And that realization terrified her more than anything else so far. Because it meant she wasn't only being hunted. She was participating in something she didn't understand. The Alpha King stepped closer again. This time, Rowan didn't move immediately. That hesitation changed everything. The distance between them collapsed slower than before. More controlled. More deliberate. Like neither of them could stop it anymore. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. Rowan blinked. "What?" "Tell me to stop," he repeated. But he didn't sound like he expected obedience. He sounded like he was testing something. Something in both of them. Rowan swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. Her body felt divided. One part screaming to run. The other refusing to move. I don't understand, she said finally. His jaw tightened slightly. That's the problem. And then, it happened. Not suddenly, not violently, but inevitably. The air between them snapped into something heavier, denser, alive. Rowan gasped softly, her knees weakening. A pulse, stronger now, inside her, matching something outside her, something inside him. The Alpha King's eyes sharpened instantly, 'cause he felt it too. And for the first time, his control fractured visibly. Just for a second, but enough to change everything. Rowan stepped back instinctively, but this time, the forest didn't let her. Not physically, but perceptually. Every direction felt wrong. Every path felt closed, like the world had already decided where she belonged. Her breath quickened. No, she whispered again, but weaker now, uncertain. The Alpha King took another step forward, not rushing, not chasing, claiming. You can't leave, he said quietly. Rowan shook her head desperately. I can. But even she didn't believe it fully anymore, 'cause something inside her was no longer aligned with escape. It was aligned with him. And that realization broke something fragile in her expression. Confusion, fear, and something far more dangerous she didn't want to name. The Alpha King stopped just a breath away from her, close enough now that she could feel his presence fully. Not as pressure, not as threat, as connection. His voice lowered, almost quiet enough to disappear into the forest. You were never running from me, he said. A pause. Then, you were running toward what you are. Rowan's lips parted slightly, but no words came, because she didn't understand. Not fully, not yet, but something inside her was beginning to. Slowly, uncomfortably, irreversibly. Far away, beyond the forest, deep within the unseen layers of the kingdom, ancient seals that had remained dormant for centuries began to react. Not breaking, not collapsing, awakening. Back in the clearing, the Alpha King lifted his hand slightly. Not touching her. Not yet. But close enough that the air between them trembled. Rowan didn't step back this time. She couldn't. 'Cause something stronger than fear had taken hold now. Something binding. Something inevitable. The Alpha King looked at her for a long moment. Not as a hunter. Not as a ruler. But as something far more dangerous. Certain. Possessive. Final. And when he spoke again, his voice carried no uncertainty at all. This time. A pause. Too heavy. Too absolute. I'm not letting you go.